All right, fact check this podcast, and for the first time, Evan is joining me live. We've done a few of these where we've recorded them and then I've released them later, but this one we're actually doing as a live stream. And tonight we're going to be talking about no means no, except when it doesn't, and it's up to you to figure out when that is because they're definitely not going to tell you. But before we do all that, Evan, introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of take off with it.
Yeah, well, this is the fifth or sixth time we've discussed something on your podcast. The previous 4 or 5 were all COVID related because there was a lot to talk about, and we were both very angry about the situation. And first of all, we've been totally vindicated. I mean, all the stuff that's coming out over the last year or so, like even the gatekeepers, if you will, the mainstream media, politicians, Dr. Fauci, they're all basically admitting, whether directly or indirectly, we're right about everything. But yeah, this is the first time we're discussing something outside of COVID, which is going to be fun because, I have all sorts of interest. And this topic in particular, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, especially so, gosh, it feels like almost every day I see something on either Facebook or Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And it's a post, it's either somebody posting a TikTok or an Instagram reel or something from women saying something that's just completely fucking horrible and or like super cringy. Stuff more and more often referring back to this post. Where he says women will post this shit and then wonder why the entire planet and every major religion has imposed strict social restrictions on their sovereignty since the dawn of time in every place humans have ever lived. So, like, ladies, please pump the brakes and just think about it before you post it. So, here's one. We're gonna start with the video. The chick that says I'm the problem because, God, if more would. Just be honest. The account is literally called Women Being Honest. Like, if more chicks would just be honest and admit, like, I'm the problem, we could possibly start to take some steps in the right direction with some of this stuff. And I'm sure everybody who's watching or listening has already seen this chick. But holy shit, let's hear what she has to say.
Okay, I am the problem. I went on a date with this guy, and he was like, "It's getting late. Do you want to come back to my place?" And I was like, "Sure, but I'm not going to sleep with you. Like, that's not happening." And he was like, "That's totally fine. Just come over." And I was like, "Cool." So I go to his place. He respects my wishes. He's so nice. He cuddles me all night. And I'm like, "Are you gay? Like, what?" And like, I just wanted him to like try, and then for me to be like, "No," you know what I mean? I wasn't gonna sleep with him. But I just, now I feel ugly. This is what.
Well, you should feel ugly, at least in your soul. Well,
no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say this is the kind of stuff that we see this regularly, all over the place. Like I was saying, Instagram Reels, TikTok, Twitter or X, whatever, Facebook. Like, they are all over social media, saying and doing stuff like this, and that that's why I keep going back to that post that I showed at the beginning. It's like, holy shit! Like, can you decide what you want? Like, because we're not wired to play fucking games like that, right? Like, men are very straightforward, and this goes to a conversation that I had with Alan Mosley earlier in the week on It's Too Late about like the WNBA and what's going on with the Caitlin Clark thing and everything. Like, the way women are wired is they need that constant
confrontation.
Both the validation and the confrontation, and the confrontation creates the validation. So like they need you to push their boundaries so that they can be like, "No, I'm not doing that," and shut you down, which by shutting you down, that validates that she's actually attractive, because now she's like, either you're gay or I'm ugly because you didn't try. even though at the very beginning of this, she said it's not happening. So there's no, so like, if you know it's not happening, you're not going to try. Like, what's the, why? Like, where's the, in the risk reward matrix of things, where's the reward here? Right. So you're not going to try because she already said there's no point. It's not happening. What were you going to say?
Well, I was gonna say, like, this girl is not unique. This really is like the natural sort of way in which women approach dating. Like, they want to test the guy in essence to see what he's made of. They want to see, do you have the balls to overcome the resistance? Do you have the resiliency that I'm looking for in a man that I want to be with? The problem is the culture that has been created by, decades of feminism, and then more recently and more specifically Me Too. It's basically just made it impossible for guys, even guys who know what they're doing, guys who have a bit of experience and they understand how the game works. It's just entirely too dangerous for them to ever try and read body language or overcome that initial resistance that women put forth. Because if he makes a mistake, or even if he does something afterwards that she doesn't like, she can ruin his life if he basically disregarded the initial no. Like, that's it. It all comes down to, her fickle nature and how she feels. Because she can basically just withdraw consent. She can decide, oh, I don't like the way he did this. I don't like the way that did that. So if you're a guy, it just doesn't make sense to try and, because as you said, the risk reward, it's just not worth it anymore. Like there was always, guys always had to risk rejection, which was hard enough because it sucks being rejected. But ultimately, if he was able to read correctly, the reward was worth the risk. But nowadays it's not. Even for guys who sort of know what they're doing, never mind some 19, 20-year-old kid who's not experienced. He hasn't learned how to read nonverbal cues. He's been inundated from the time he was a little boy with this hyper feminist culture. No means no. You're always wrong. Always listen to her. Affirmative consent. Never talk to a woman in public. Otherwise, you're a raging misogynist sexual predator. It just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever for men to even take these risks anymore. And that's why it's one of the many reasons why the dating pool right now, it's just a complete mess. You have guys who are completely checking out. You have women who feel like there's no guys out there who actually have balls, who are, going to be able to withstand the sort of test that not only I'm going to put him through, but the test that life is going to put him through. And I think maybe they're not aware of this, but at some sort of like subconscious level, I think that's sort of why women test men, is because they want to see how he responds to a challenge. Because if he can overcome a challenge with her, it sort of bleeds out into the rest of life, where it demonstrates he could overcome challenges in other elements of life. I may be looking too much into it, but I think there's like some subconscious evolutionary psychological motivation behind why women often test men. So I don't even necessarily blame this woman in that video for feeling that way, because they're all sort of wired to do that. But the environment that has been created, like, she has to understand she can't do that anymore. Not in this environment. It's not the 1980s. It's not the 1990s. This is post Me Too. This is post, third wave feminism and all this stuff. So for men, it's just not worth it to take these risks anymore.
Well, and that that takes us to some of the replies that were posted on this particular video, and some of these that you had posted in your Facebook post that kind of triggered the conversation to have the conversation. Like this one, for instance, where whoever this respondent is says, I guess if the no isn't a hard line, like you can tell she's interested but wants to be chased, pursue it. But if you can't tell if she wants to be chased, then it's best to give up. If he couldn't tell, then that was the best move. I'm not sure how I feel about her response. And the response to that is no is a no, no matter what. And as a female, I can tell you that we want to be pursued. We might say no for now, but that can be a test. Obviously, a guy shouldn't assume that the no is a test every time, but in some cases it can be. What the fuck? How is a guy supposed to read that and not go straight back to the very first thing that I'd shared? Like,
right.
This is why you have been restricted in every facet of society for as long as there have been men in power to do so, because just the fickle nature of that response, like no guy knows what that means. Say a no for now, but could be a test, but you shouldn't assume that it's a test, because in some cases it might not be a test, but it also might be a test, and there's no way for you to know if it's a test. You have to read some sort of body language, but her body language is going to be different from every other woman's body language, because they're all batshit crazy in their own unique ways. Like it's just insane. And then like there's like the guy responds, "Not worth the chance," and
Right.
and so she's like, "Well, in some cases that's true. That's why it's important to take body language and wording into account when speaking with a woman. Even if there's a hint of annoyance or anything like that, back off. Other than that, try. If it doesn't work out, then that's when you assess the situation. Yada yada." Like, okay, like I said, I mean, you're all insane in your own unique way. So how are we supposed to take your body language and her body language and it's, and like he says, I mean, the guy is clearly like not trying to entertain any of this bullshit. He's like, no means no, and it's not worth the risk. Like, I'm not trying to guess what's going on in your head. Either fucking tell me, or I'm just not dealing with it. And I mean, and that's how we're wired. Like in a professional sense, if you tell me that I'm doing something wrong, I'll fix it and I'll stop doing it. If you tell me there's something that I need to be doing differently, then I'll start doing that. If you just leave it to me to figure out what the fuck it is you want, then I'm gonna do whatever it is I want, or whatever it is I think is the least path of resistance to me just continuing to go forward with my life. And that's how most guys tend to be wired. Like, we don't have these mental games built in where we're trying to figure out all of these make-believe cues that mean different things depending on literally the time of the month in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Well, and it's they're expecting guys to essentially think like women, right? And that's just not how we're wired. Like we're very direct with each other. If there's a problem, we need to figure out how to solve it. If you come up to me and say, "Hey, Evan, do you think I've gotten a little fat?" I'd be like, "Yeah, you put on some weight, hit the gym." And that's just how we are. Like, we don't have the time or patience for these little games. And women often don't even. It's not only that they don't know what each other wants; they often don't even know what the fuck they want. But they expect you to figure it out. And again, as a guy with enough experience, like, you can sort of learn to read these things. But if you get caught up with the wrong girl, like, even if you're very experienced and you feel like you have a good handle on her body language, like, it shouldn't be that difficult. If a woman is like genuinely coming off like she's repulsed by you, then that's a pretty good indication, even for guys who maybe don't have the best ability to read body language, that she's not interested. If she's flirting with you and she's touching you and she's smiling with you and like she's sort of moving her body into yours, but like she's saying something, like, you can sort of decipher, okay, she's actually interested. She's just playing hard to get. But given the circumstance, it's just not worth it anymore. Do you know the Modern Wisdom podcast with Chris Williamson?
I haven't listened, but I'm familiar. I know what it is. But
okay, yeah, he was relaying a story where he was with like this YouTube content creator, and this was like I don't know who it was, but he said he's like a young, handsome kid, early 20s, charismatic. Everything about him is the type of he has all the traits that you would expect a young woman to be interested. And Chris said that he was at the bar with this kid, and he saw two attractive young women sitting at the bar by themselves. And Chris is a little older. I think he's like his mid-30s. And he went over to this kid. He was like, "Hey, you want to go talk to these girls? It's like they're sitting by themselves." And he said the way this young man reacted to him suggesting that they go over and talk to them was essentially like, you would have thought I just suggested we go over there and pour drinks over their heads and smack them in the face. It's like, are you crazy? Go talking to two women who are like, that's sexual harassment. Like, this is how men have been programmed. And so, like, ladies, I understand there's this sort of biological instinct to test men and play hard to get. And it's more fun. And the romance is a little bit more intense in those situations. But you cannot be doing that in today's environment. You need to start being more direct with the guys in your life, because the like dating apps and just the general culture have made dating. I thank God I'm not single, man. I see some of the shit that my single friends have to put up with. Like the entire dating scene has just completely changed since I was off the market in like 2012. Because I think so I got into the relationship out with my wife in like mid 2012. And I remember late 2012, early 2013 is when I first started hearing like all my single friends talk about Tinder. And that I think was like the beginning of the dating app revolution. And in those 10 or 11 years, everything has completely changed. And the way I look at it, like I shared a meme a few months ago where this lady was like, hey, do married people watch their single friends dating and feel like they caught the last chopper out of Nam? And that's really how it feels. Like I am so grateful to not be a part of this because it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, I got married in 16, and I got super lucky. I got divorced, and then I spent a little over a year kind of on the dating scene. And as soon as I met my wife, we were married within a couple months. Like I figured out really quickly she was a keeper, and I wasn't in the mood to fuck around with any of this other bullshit. She also was not in the mood to fuck around with any of that bullshit. So like we got married, and I haven't had to deal with it. And yeah, I have single friends that just like, holy shit, I don't understand. I don't understand why you would even like take the risk of putting yourself out there. And that's what another one of these replies to the chick that you had posted, you know, some of her replies. This guy coming back to her, he says, what guy wants to take that kind of risk when a girl can put you in jail and ruin your life over these kind of things? Which one is it? No means no, or no means yes. Make up their minds and stop acting like children. I mean, it's a good summary. Like that statement by that guy is a good summary of like what goes through dudes' minds these days. It's like, I cannot take even the slightest risk that anything about this interaction could possibly come back against me, because it's not just like, you know, feelings hurt, she said no, you got rejected. It's like she's going to file a police report, and you might end up in fucking jail and lose your job and who knows what else. Like,
Oh, and if it's a high profile case, like the media is going to convict you before any of the evidence comes out. I mean, look at Trevor Bauer, look at Matt Ariza, the punter for the Buffalo Bills. Look at all these high profile cases where these guys had their names dragged through the mud, were tarred and feathered. They were fired from their jobs in many cases. Trevor Bauer still can't get a job in Major League Baseball, even though he's clearly one of the best pitchers. All of bullshit accusations. And when it comes out that the woman just completely made the whole thing up, there's no apologies. These guys, they can't get their reputations back. They often can't get their jobs back. It drags with them for the rest of their lives. It's, as you said, the risk is not worth the reward at this point, just based on the culture we've created.
And there's no recourse for the women either. I guess like the Duke lacrosse team is probably lucky in that they were all lumped in as the Duke lacrosse team. So you might have the opportunity down the road to just like distance yourself from that. But like, I mean, for years, the Duke lacrosse team was like the example of like college rape scene at its worst. And then the whole thing turned out to be a whole lot of bullshit. Like everything about, and that's what this Me Too movement created, was for every legitimate case where it was like, yeah, that's pretty fucked up. And most of them were like super high profile, Hollywood or like executive types where that was applicable, like legitimately applicable.
Yeah, no one should feel bad for Harvey Weinstein. Like no one's defending that guy. And just like, to be fair, like there were definitely incidents where you had like these incredibly powerful men who were abusing their authority in like incredibly malicious and predatory and even criminal ways, and they were just getting away with it because of who they were. And like, those men needed their comeuppance. So like, I'm not pretending that stuff doesn't exist. I'm not pretending there weren't men out there who didn't get what was coming to them. But like everything else, particularly that the left does, it just overextended into insanity, where it's like one of the way I heard a woman the other day complaining how like there's guys she likes at her job who she's trying to give these cues to, but they just won't ever talk to her. And it's like, well, like, how is he supposed to know? Because like if it all comes down to whether or not she likes you. It's creepy if she doesn't like you, and it's charming if she likes you. You could do the exact same thing. It's that famous SNL skit with Tom Brady and that ordinary guy in the office where you're like the right way and the wrong way to approach your office worker. And like some average looking dude, he comes up and he's like really nice and complimentary. And like she calls HR, and then Tom Brady walks in his underwear and pinches her breast. And she's like, "Ooh, thank you." It's all because Tom Brady's a 6'4" handsome dude and the other guy isn't. So it's like, you can't expect, the only way for a guy to know whether or not you're interested is if he takes the initial chance to approach you or put himself out there. But if he puts himself out there to the wrong woman and she's not interested, who knows what could happen to him? So it's just not worth it. So you have an instance now, or you have a reality now in which even guys who probably can, to some degree, sense that the woman might be into them, even if it's a 20% chance that they're misreading the situation. They're like, you know what, that's just too high. I don't need her to follow an HR report if I've misread the situation. So I'm just going to stay the fuck away.
And I mean, how can you blame guys for that? And also that probably goes into like a larger thing of why you see so many men, especially in the dating age, in that like early 20s to early 30s age range, that are just completely checking out of dating entirely. It's like because the risk reward is too great, and because especially if you're in your 20s, like, so you're
not experienced enough. Like everything else, you need a certain level of experience before you become comfortable doing these things. You know, whether it's with anything, whether it's a craft, whether it's dating women or becoming intimate with them, you need a certain level of experience before you're comfortable feeling like you know how to operate. And if you're a guy who's like in his early 20s, first of all, you're not very confident to begin with at that age for the most part. You don't have any experience. You particularly don't have any experience with women. And again, you come from a generation that has just been bludgeoned with this feminist propaganda. And then you see these videos of these women who are basically angry because they can't find men who are doing the exact opposite of what feminist culture has told men to do. And they're just like, I have no idea what the fuck to do. This is too confusing. And if in this environment where it's too confusing, if I do something wrong, my life could be over. I'm just not engaging anymore.
Well, and the problem for those guys is it's something that I've talked about recently on our morning show and on Peddling Fiction. Like, when you're in that age range, life fucking sucks. You're probably fresh out of college. You've got a ton of student debt. You're just starting out in a job that you have little to no experience in. You're trying to get your feet on the ground, and then you've got all of the challenges of dating and trying to navigate women and their insanity and all of that. Like, and if something happens at this age where you the cute chick in the corner office makes a pass at you, and then you pick up on that and make a pass back, and it turns out she didn't actually mean it, or she decides that she didn't for no fucking reason whatsoever other than, her mood changed, and now she reports you to HR, you lose your job. Now, the only thing that you have on your record is that you got fired for sexual harassment. You have literally nothing to back you to go into the next job. Like, if you're 40, 50, 60, you've been doing this for 20 years, you can be like, yeah, this crazy broad, like, this is what happened. And you've got a book that you've built of your track record and your career that you can, like, maybe mitigate the losses and move forward. But when you're 20, like, you're just trying to not be fucking broke and starve to death. You can't take any risks. Like, everything you do is already a risk.
And to make matters worse, like, women will notoriously admit that they'll often flirt with guys who they don't even like just because they're bored or they want the attention. Right. So, like, how is he supposed to know whether he's one of those guys you're just flirting with because you enjoy flirting, or whether or not you actually like him? They literally make it impossible for these guys.
And that's, it goes to a certain level of feminine mentality that, for us as guys, like, even for us having been married for, my first marriage was 8 years. The current one is 8 years next month. So collectively, I've been married for 16 years. You've been married for about 12. We've got a lot of experience under our belt. Okay. Yeah. So
I met my girlfriend. We've been together for 12 years and we married for 9.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got a decent amount of relationship record under our belt.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to navigate women.
No way. No way.
You know?
God forbid my relationship ended right now, I'd be completely lost. And the ironic thing is, like, just before I met my wife, like, there was a 2 to 3 year period where I felt like, okay, I'm actually starting to get good at this. Like, I'm starting to have some success with women. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel confident that I could go out and meet one. And then I met my wife, and there was a part of me that's kind of like, man, I have to meet this really great girl just as I'm starting to, like, understand how to operate in the single world. And, like, I dragged my feet for a little while because of that. And to this day, my wife will give me shit that I played games with her in the beginning. And I always tell her, I'm like, yeah, well, you married me, so they obviously worked. But like, eventually, like, I dragged my feet, but eventually I was like, you know what, like, this, I'm not going to meet another woman like this. Like, in New York City, meeting a beautiful feminine woman who has my values and isn't a crazy feminist progressive. I know she's going to make a great mother, a great wife. Like, I'm not going to meet another woman like this. So I can't let her go. So, I put my, I put my desire to be a bachelor for a little bit longer. I said, you know what, that's short term. I got to think long term. I can't let this woman go. So I got in the relationship. But the thing was, like I said, that was before the dating apps. Like, the dating apps in the last 10 years have just completely changed everything. And I feel like if for some reason I were to be single again, like, everything I learned would almost be null and void because the environment is so completely different. I would have no idea what the fuck to do. Like, my single friends basically tell me that you now have to court women through Instagram. So, like, if you like someone, they'll exchange Instagrams, and then the way to, like, understand whether or not she's really interested in you is she'll like a picture that's, like, 7 months old, as opposed to liking your latest picture. It just means, oh, I like this picture. Like, he's explaining this to me. I'm like, I like, how do you do this, dude? Like, it was frustrating enough when this stuff didn't exist. I would probably be like most of these other guys, and I would just check out.
It's literally fucking rocket science. God, I'd be so fucked because all I use Instagram for is, like, dumb comedy videos and baseball videos. Like, I watch like old baseball clips and dumb comedy shit. That's literally all I use Instagram for. I don't know how I could even, like, possibly navigate that.
If you meet a really attractive woman, like, my understanding is 95% of her Instagram is just her, like, in bikinis or taking selfies. Like, this is true. Like, take any woman who's, like, a 7.5 physically or higher. Her, like, 90% of her Instagram is just her looking sexy. And this is, and how many guys do you think she's given out her Instagram to, and she's juggling all at the same time? And you got to, like, do something really interesting just to stick out. Maybe she'll talk to you when she's bored because she's not getting attention from the guys she really wants. But, like, you're competing with, if any woman who's attractive, like, if she really wants to, she could have anywhere from, like, a dozen to 3 dozen guys that she's entertaining all at once, just waiting to pick the right one. And that's what you're competing with. You can't compete.
I mean, it's no wonder dudes are checking out of that. Like, why would you even bother playing that game? And
it's also, like, there's a level of hoflation to a degree, because what happens is you have all these women on dating apps, say they're, like, a 6 in terms of their physical appearance. They can find a guy who's an 8 or 9 who will have sex with them if he's bored. Right? Like, he's not going to commit to them, but they can easily find a guy who's an 8 or 9 who, I'll have a one night stand for you. So because they're getting attention from guys who are 8s or 9s, they now have it in their head that that's their standard. Like, oh, I just had sex with a couple of guys who are 8s and 9s, so I should be chasing after 8s and 9s. And she's ignoring all of these guys who are actually in her league, who are 6s and 7s, who throughout most of human history would have been perfectly good enough for her to pair up with and start a family and start a life. But because she's getting this false attention from these guys who are out of her league, she now has it in her mind that instead of being a 6, she's an 8 or 9. But it's even worse than that. But because she's a 6 who thinks she's an 8 or 9, that actually brings her down to a 4 because her personality sucks and she's entitled. So you basically have all these dating apps just littered with women who are 6s and 7s with 2 personalities who think they're 9s. And that's another thing that these guys are dealing with. I know I gave you a lot.
So for you single guys out there, the ones who are listening to this show, you know who you are. I'm not going to name your names. But stop fucking down. you're just creating this incense of self-entitlement that these hoes don't deserve. So stop looking down.
You're ruining the dating market for like ordinary, decent guys who, like, you know, a lot of women would probably want to end up with. Like I said, a lot of these women who are 6s and 7s, there's plenty of guys out there who are in their league who would be more than happy to date them, but they're not even giving them attention. Like, you hear these stories of these guys who are like, you know, they're pretty good looking and they're successful, and, you know, they're like, there's nothing wrong with them. Like, throughout all of human history would have had plenty of female suitors, and they talk about how they can't even get a woman to write them back on these dating apps. It's insane. You got, like, in order to be a guy who gets like any sort of serious attention on a dating app, you've got to be in like the top 10% of dudes.
Well, at least those guys have the benefit of they probably got a halfway useful college degree and are now have a professional career that they can do something with, as opposed to most of these women who got psychology and marketing degrees and are completely useless. And then you get videos like this one right here where, where'd it go? There it is. Where this chick is complaining about, like, she's 29 years old and she just can't find a man.
Quick question. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I am so sick and tired of just everything right now.
Welcome to adulthood.
Everyone is so quick to say, stop doing this, stop thinking like this, stop telling me I'm wrong. I have literally convinced myself at this point, based on everything that everyone's telling me, my friends, that I'm just doing everything wrong. I'm healing wrong. I'm thinking wrong. I'm training wrong. I'm doing relationships wrong. Everything I do is fucking wrong. And I'm so sick of it. Stop comparing. It's not even about comparison. Like, I genuinely just want love in my life so badly. It's literally not about anyone else. It's just about me and what I want. And being fucking over the fact that I don't have it. I feel like I have done so much work on myself. I have built a beautiful life for myself. I'm happy with my life where I'm at, my job. I'm successful. I'm independent. I'm healthier than I've ever been. I take such good care of myself. Truly, the only thing I'm missing in my life is someone to enjoy it with. And I'm so sick of waiting. Like, when is it going to be my turn? What more do I have to do to fix myself before I'm just allowed to be happy, before I'm allowed to meet this universe soulmate person that God supposedly has for me? How much harder do I have to pray and manifest and wait? I feel like I'm being punished for something I didn't do. And I'm just so tired. I'm so tired. I don't expect a lot. I just want love in my life so bad. I want my life partner. Am I just supposed to be alone? Like, is that the message? That this beautiful life I've built for myself, like, it's just supposed to be me in it alone? Like, I know I have my dog and I love him so much, but, like, I need love. All of my friends have their fiancés and their boyfriends and their husbands that they prioritize. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I've been left behind. And I really just want to find that person that matches my energy and wants to build a life with me. Is that so hard?
I really do feel bad for that chick. Like,
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of them that I see those videos, and I really do, like, sincerely feel bad for them, because it's like, yeah, well, I get it. It sucks, but like,
there's a lot there. First of all, and I'm not trying to be mean, because I do kind of feel bad for her as well. First thing she needs to do, stop doing this. Stop fucking talking like this. Okay. If I see a woman do that, I immediately know I don't ever want to even have a conversation with her. Okay. Secondly, I'm pretty sure there's more than a few guys who are very decent, maybe not exactly what she's looking for, but pretty decent guys who would be more than happy to go out with her. She is very attractive, and she's just not interested in them. And it could be that her standards are too high, right? I mean, it goes back to kind of what I was saying before. Like I watched this, I forget where it was, but there was this woman, she was on the news, a news channel, and she was talking about like the standards between men and women, like what they're looking for in a partner. And she said, guys basically look for three things. She's got to be cute enough, you know, it doesn't have to be a supermodel looking, but she's got to be cute enough. She's got to be fun to talk to, and she has to be really sweet and kind. And she said the women had like 10 pages lists of things that he had to be this, he had to be that. And she was saying, you know, I've heard women end dates with men because she didn't like the fucking shoes he was wearing. Okay, so like they will nitpick all, or because his belt didn't match, you know, the rest of his outfit, and they will end the dates with otherwise perfectly decent men over stupid shit like that, and then they will go on TikTok and complain about how they're still alone. Now, I'm not saying you should settle for someone who's bad for you, okay, but there is an element of like some of these women, they seem to think that like they deserve nothing less than like Bruce Wayne himself, and like that's their standard, and they're not going to settle for anything less. And they don't understand that, look, you're not perfect. And here's another thing that would pretty much solve this issue for so many of these women, particularly these single liberal women. Guys don't give a shit about your degree. They don't give a shit about what you do for a living. They don't care about how educated you are. They care about how attractive you are, how sweet you are, whether or not they think you're going to be a good wife, and how feminine you are. You know, like so many women in the West, they've just completely lost their feminine essence. So I've been to Korea 3 times, and one of the things that really stands out to me, because like there's a lot of guys out there who like sort of have a thing for Asian women, and one of the things that I noticed when I was there, even the very ordinary looking women, not an ounce of testosterone in them. They are so feminine. Even the women who are like successful and they're independent and they've sort of, you know, become like this progressive ideal of what a woman should be, even they have completely maintained their femininity to the point where even the sort of ordinary looking Korean girls, they're more attractive than they otherwise would be, just for the simple fact that they're extremely feminine, right? It's just like a woman can meet a guy who's very average looking. Maybe there's nothing particularly unique about his physical appearance, but if he's like got this incredibly masculine personality, she's going to be more attracted to him. It's the same thing with us. And so many of these American liberal women, they've just, not only have they rejected femininity, they view femininity as like this oppressive patriarchal psyop that they're you know, they're giving into the man if they sort of incorporate that in their personality. And I can guarantee you a lot of the top quality guys that they're looking for, they're not interested in these women because they're just not feminine enough.
That is,
now it's probably a little different where you are because you're from the South and the Midwest. I'm sure the women over there are a lot different from the women, say, in New York. But if you live in like a big liberal city, like women like that girl in the video, they're the norm.
see, that's insane. So my wife came in as we were doing this, and I told her she may or may not like this conversation. She will actually probably like it because, like what you were talking about with the femininity, this is a word that I struggle with, femininity, that you really do see in more rural, Midwestern, Southern areas.
No question.
You don't see it as much in big cities, and a lot of these women, they take a lot of pride in the girl boss stuff, like, and that's entirely their persona, is the girl boss thing. Like, they've watched too much network television where you always have the obligatory female character and the gay character,
which is literally every show nowadays,
right? And all of these characters, that's it. That's their entire personality. That's everything that's interesting about them is girl boss, LGBTQ, black. They have to fit this perfect cone of the thing, and that's all they have to them. So these more urbanite women see that, and they think that's what they have to be likable. And then what you end up having is they can't have a conversation for more than 20 minutes without making it about what a girl boss they are or putting politics into it. And that, like you were talking about with the very short list of things that guys want. One of the things that guys want is, can you just have a conversation? Like, can you be conversational in a decent manner? And as soon as they go off on the girl boss tangent or, deep dive into politics, the average guy is going to check out on that. They're like, yeah, hard pass. Like, we didn't talk about politics at all until after we were already married. And then I slowly turned her into a libertarian and have since turned her into a borderline Nazi. She won't admit to that last part, but we're getting there. So, like, that was not a part of anything that we talked about. And it's perfect. Like, it doesn't, so I'm not saying necessarily for those who are in the dating scene that politics isn't important, because especially if you're more urban, you probably do need to suss that out, at least to some extent, so you don't end up with a complete psychopath leftist. But like, if she can just hold a conversation without that being a focal point of what she wants to talk about, that's a good start. But a lot of these women in these videos and stuff, like, they complain about how they can't find a guy that's actually decent unless he's a conservative, and then they're immediately turned off because they don't want to go out with conservative guys. It's like, who do you think is going to actually treat you right and be worth spending time with?
There was that viral video where this woman, she was like, I'm a liberal. I want a guy who's really masculine, but I can't find a masculine guy who's a liberal. She's like, what do I do? And that's the thing. Like, a lot of these women, like, they fully expect the man to have all these traditional masculine virtues, to behave in a traditionally masculine manner. But the mere suggestion that they have some traditional feminine values or behave in a traditionally feminine way, they're just so offended by it. I mean, just look at the insane, unhinged manner they've reacted to the Harrison Butker speech, which is just one of the most psychotic things I've ever seen. You would think he got up on stage, pulled down his pants, took a dump in front of everyone, and then pointed to it and says, this is what I think of women. That's how these people are reacting to his totally normal speech. It's fucking madness.
You want to see one of the supposedly this is one of the Kansas City Chiefs cheerleaders' response to that. And since you brought it up, this is about as unhinged as any of the responses that I've seen, and it also goes hand in hand with everything else we've kind of been talking about.
Okay.
First and foremost, until a few months ago, we were both employed by the Kansas City Chiefs. I cheered you on for 6 years straight. And with that, I would assume we went to the same PR training. But since all of that obviously left your fucking brain when you went to go give that speech, I thought I'd be a good coworker. Share my notes. Let's get started. These are fucking big. Biggest takeaway is you now represent $1 billion organization. You are no longer just Harrison Butker. You are now Harrison Butker, who plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. And anything you say or do that doesn't align with that brand, scissoring just like the lesbians you hated in that video, will be grounds for termination.
Okay, first of all, that the look on her face, the tone of her voice, her mannerisms, that's penis repellent is what that is. Okay, no guy, like no quality guy would ever want to spend a second around a woman like that, who is basically just oozing, I'm a psychopath, with like the way she's conducting herself. And it's funny because, like, didn't Ray Lewis basically kill 2 people? And like, he was not treated this badly by the media when he came back. Tyreek Hill, who's like a known repeat domestic violence offender, even like punched his 3-year-old. Adrian Peterson, when he was in the NFL, like, he beat his 3-year-old with a switch, and he had like the kid had bruises all over his body, including his testicles. Like these guys were not treated half as badly by the media and by these like liberal retards as Harrison Butker is, simply for saying masculinity is good, motherhood's the most important thing you'll ever do, pride is a sin. I mean,
Harrison Butker literally has a teammate who is still with the Kansas City Chiefs, Simeon Rice, who I'm pretty sure was recently found guilty of beating up his girlfriend or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, they don't care.
Nothing
else.
Yeah.
It's insane.
That's totally fine. Like we're not gonna talk about the ones who literally beat their wives or girlfriends or just some random hooker that they picked up on the street corner. Like we're gonna go after the guy who is happily married for a long time, who Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes both have said as a stand-up, absolute like character dude, great family guy, like everything. Like that's who they're mad about, because he suggested that, you know, having traditional Catholic values is a bad thing at a traditional Catholic college. Wow. Yeah. I mean, shocker, right?
Yeah, I thought COVID would like make me not hate progressives like any more than I possibly could. But this Harrison Butker thing has like, these people are just completely fucking irredeemable. Leftism truly is the ideology of Satan. Everything that's noble and decent and functional and beautiful, like leftism aims to destroy that. And it's, you know, it not only that, it aims to destroy it while presenting itself as virtue and nobility, which is why I say it's the ideology of Satan, right? Because I'm not particularly religious. I'm certainly not a biblical scholar, but I know that's sort of how Satan operates, right? Like he doesn't just come and say, "Oh, I'm evil, do this." Like he presents himself as the alternative, like as virtue. And then, you know, once you engage him, he completely destroys your soul. That's what leftism is. If there is a destructive trend, like having 12-year-olds hack off their breasts and, you know, go on puberty blockers in the name of some fake ideology that was literally created by pedophiles, that's totally fine. But suggesting that a mother should raise her kids because that's what's best for the kids, that will make their fucking heads explode. These people are the worst. I fucking hate them.
All right. So this is a little bit parallel to, but not exactly on this path. It does connect to the dating thing and some of these women that so we've talked about like the decision making sort of thing, like rejecting men who would be perfectly suitable, except that for some reason in their brains they've got the 10-page list of expectations. What were your thoughts on the meeting a man or a bear in the woods, all of that shit that was going around for a while?
Well, you know, I got a good laugh at a lot of the memes. You know, I didn't really have too strong of an opinion about it because, again, like it was mainly progressive women who were saying they would choose the bear. And we already know these women are entirely mentally ill. And I'm not even making a joke about that. Like 60% of liberal women have been clinically diagnosed with a mental illness.
I think
Okay,
it's actually a higher percentage than that.
Okay, so I gave them a little bit more credit. So no, it doesn't surprise me. Like I expected that. And you know, look, liberal women are also the most politically active demographic in the country. Like no one votes more than they do. No one engages in activism more than they do. And so we basically have most of our political discourse being pushed forth by people who are literally mentally insane. And we wonder why the country is falling apart.
You want to get a really good laugh out of the man versus bear thing. This is a fun little video.
I'm sure by now you've seen women on TikTok going viral stating they feel safer with a bear than a man.
Loved it.
And these women are sending a powerful and meticulously crafted political message that says to the world, we are bad at risk analysis. Stop making us do it.
For years, the world has told women, we need more of you to trade crypto, gamble, enroll in actuarial sciences,
enter STEM fields,
and other risk analysis adjacent fields. And these women revolted by saying, enough is enough. I can't even tell if a human man is more dangerous than a bear. Please stop trying to force me to run a hedge fund.
And I got to confess, because I'm guilty as anyone. When I saw that men are 91% more likely than females to be invested in the stock market, or that 95% of professional poker players are men, I thought these women are just being lazy. We need a few more articles to force them into these fields.
Ignorant.
Completely ignorant. And I'm ashamed to say that when I first saw the man or bear trend, I took it at face value. And I said, I know that driving a car is dangerous, for example, but I would obviously be safer on the road than in a cage with a mountain lion, even if there are fewer deaths by lions due to frequency of encounters. But I just wasn't seeing the purposefulness in which this inaccurate risk assessment was being administered.
I as well am guilty. Recently, my wife blew up on me in a similar manner by saying I should be less worried about my leveraged altcoin option trades and more worried about her custom dog collar Etsy store.
Brilliant statement.
But I now realize that just like the man or bear protest, she was sending me an eloquent message that says, I don't like risk analysis. I like animals.
You know, He's great, by the way, Ryan Long. His Instagram is awesome. This is one of the benefits of marrying a woman who wasn't born or raised in the United States and is completely apolitical. Like, she doesn't even give a shit about her native country's politics. Is when a lot of this madness sort of makes its way around the internet. I get to present it to her with like a completely fresh perspective that hasn't been tainted, and she'll often look at me like, what are you talking about? It's like I asked her the man or bear thing, and she's like, huh? Like, why are you asking me this? What kind of stupid question is that? I'm like, okay, you're right. I just had to ask you to see how you would react to this, because yeah, it's so incredibly stupid. But some of the memes are great, so it wasn't entirely bad.
I do think while he's making light of it and being humorous about it with the risk assessment thing, like, you see other videos and other situations where, I don't know if you remember this. It's probably been about a year ago. There were a bunch of videos going around of a TV show. I want to say it was either a British or an Australian show, where they took a group of guys and a group of women and they put them on an island and just like, all right, here you go, survive, figure it out. And so the videos that were shown are just like the dudes just duding it up, broing it up, having a time, like killing shit, eating everything, like really enjoying and living life to the fullest. And the women are going around in circles, literally, like not making it where they need to be going on the island. Like somehow they keep ending up back in the same spot that they started every time they leave to try to get to the other side of the island. They're all complaining about how they're starving to death. When you go and look at the actual videos, like the episodes of this show when it came out, the producers like put pigs and stuff like in the women's way so that they would be able to catch something to eat, and instead they try to like keep it as a pet and accidentally kill it, and then they bury it instead of like eating it. And while and it's not to say that things were all hunky-dory for the dudes. Like,
right,
the dudes went through a period of figuring shit out. Like, there's pecking order with guys. Like, you're going to figure out who's good at what, who should be the leader, and there's probably going to be some fighting and some headbutting and shit involved to get to that point. But once they got the pecking order established, then everything's good to go and we fucking roll. Whereas the women, every time somebody emerged as like the smarter, more intelligent one that had good ideas, then the entire rest of the group just beat that bitch down.
Yes.
And everybody ganged up on her. And so they constantly are in this like can't ever get their feet off the ground, because every time somebody has a good idea, all the rest of them just gang up and beat her down until she gives up. And so, and that's hardwired in. That's hardwired in from fucking birth.
Oh yeah.
There are studies that show
they are ruthless with each other. This whole idea of women lifting up other women, get the hell out of here.
And there are studies that show like toddlers, like in the I want to say it's in the 10 to 20 month range, like where they're crawling around but not really walking good.
Yeah,
they'll put an obstacle in front of a male toddler.
Yeah,
and they'll figure out how to get around it or over it or get it out of their way. Like, they'll go through it.
Yeah. Whereas
the females will just stop and cry until somebody moves it. Like, it is hardwired into us. Like, you can't tell me there's not a difference between men and women, because there are so many studies, like legitimate studies, and then just like case studies where you see stuff like the Two Island videos, where the way that men and women interact with each other and with society and with like problem solving and stuff as a whole, women are not good at just basic problem solving. And that's not to say all.
Right.
My wife is at times very good at problem solving. Thank God she left the room, because there are also other times where she completely fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Or she'll tell me what she needs to do for 3 weeks. And like, it's just, there is a hardwired difference between men and women. And a lot of this stuff, like once they get to college and they get these degrees, they they're being coached to think that doesn't exist. And
Oh
so
yeah.
now they're hitting the dating scene and they just think that like men should think the way we do. And then when they encounter the ones that do, the liberal men, they reject that because they view that as a feminine thing. And that feminine hardwiring is to tear down the other feminine thing, as you see in the island videos and stuff like that. In what's going on in the WNBA right now. Like you see where
they hate Caitlin Clark. Like it's like, you should understand this girl is your meal ticket to like fame. And listen, I'm not saying they should like not play hard against her or anything like that. Like, you're a professional and competitor. Like, yeah, give her 100%. But like, when you see what they're doing, it's like they seem intent on destroying this girl. And it's like, it doesn't matter that she is the boat, that the rising tide that will lift all boats. And that if she's successful, you're all successful with her and you'll all make more money. It's like, no, this bitch is standing out. We are going to take her down.
right. That's 100% right. And that's what we see societally and culturally for women in all of these situations. So it's really insane to see that. But you know, like I was saying, like when they hit the dating scene, they find these liberal men, and the liberal men are just women. Like they are intellectually and emotionally women. So the women see that and they just want to tear that down. They hate that. They fucking want to destroy it. It's ingrained into them to do that. But then for whatever reason, they encounter the conservative men, and because politics has been so hardwired into them, now they reject that too. So then you get these Instagram and TikTok videos where they're crying about how they can't find a man, and it's like, well, you have either brainwashed half the men into being women, and the other half you have been so brainwashed by politics that you reject them. So like, you're gonna have to decide, do you want that pussy or do you want an actual strong man, and you're willing to maybe bend on your politics a little bit? And who knows, maybe I bet what they're most scared of is they're going to bend on they're going to bend on their politics a little bit. And then a couple years down the road, they're going to realize, oh shit, I've been like, Harrison Butker was right. I've been lied to this whole fucking time.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And it's funny because like, I'm not like that masculine of a guy. Like, if you compare me to my grandfather's generation, like, I'm pathetic, but like compared to the average new age male, it's like I'm 10 times more masculine than like these liberal, beta bitches. And it's, what was I going to say? I was going to say something.
You went off demeaning yourself. And
oh yeah. Yeah. I know I had a point that was, directly responding to what you were going to say, but, oh no, like, yeah, women, they're like, so like men cannot like each other, but if they understand that something needs to get done, they will put their personal differences aside for the sake of accomplishing the task. Even if they hate each other, they can temporarily put their hatred aside because they know something needs to get done. Women will sabotage the goal, no matter how important it is, just in order to make the women that they don't like pay for the fact that they may be a little bit better at something. And that's just, like you said, that's hardwired into them. And look, there are certain things that women, generally speaking, are better at than men. Like we're different. We have, strengths and weaknesses. That's just sort of how we evolved. But like when it comes to politics, the 19th Amendment is one of the biggest mistakes this country ever made. Clip that and share it on TikTok.
I've been saying that for a while.
I used to say it in jest. Now I'm dead serious. Like, it's just one of the biggest mistakes this country's ever made. You've seen those charts, right? Where like, if only women voted, the entire nation would be blue, and if only men voted, the entire nation would be red.
Man, there are a lot of things that you can look at like that, and the civil rights movement and other things where anytime politics has become involved, specifically where politicians have become involved, it completely subverts what the intent was of that, to turn it into another thing that has been degradational to whatever community it was intended to help, whether it was women, blacks, what have you. And I think that's why, Asians have succeeded and thrived because they haven't had any policy directly aimed towards trying to help them, and they've avoided that like almost entirely. So
and the tiger mom culture as well. Like that's another thing the left refuses to acknowledge. It's like your culture has a lot to do with like how successful you are, and Asians have this culture that is just like insanely focused on education and hard work, and like it's never good enough. You're going to do this, and this, and you know, like that stuff matters. You know,
a strong mother figure.
Yeah. And African American culture, on the other hand, like it's, you know, I think by design, it just feeds them absolute poison. Nothing is ever your fault. It's all the fault of the white man. If you look at the civil rights movement, the black community, like their legitimacy rates have gone down, their education rates have gone down. There's a wider gap in terms of their per capita income with compared to white people than there was before the civil rights movement. And you know, this was a time in the first half of the 20th century where the racism that the left pretend exists today actually did exist then. And yet, despite that, the African American community was doing much better. No, I'm not saying they were performing better because of racism. I'm saying because these big government policies that were in place did not exist. And since then, there's been like a direct correlation where their status in terms of everything has just gone down since the Civil Rights Act, since the Great Society, and all these big government policies that were put forth. And no one knows about this, of course. Nobody knows about how Black Americans were essentially closing the gap on white Americans for about a 30-year period before the civil rights movement took over, because they have a vested interest in people not knowing it, because they have to put forth this myth that the Democratic Party is essentially what helps Black people and gives them everything that they have, even though it's the literally inverse of reality.
Malcolm X was really on to something about the white liberal, and
he was,
and that's why they had to have him killed. But all of that is that's actually a good conversation for another time. When we will and do something on that, because I've really been wanting to talk in depth about that whole thing for a while anyway. So we will return to that. Thank you for joining me for this. I think we've covered the this dating scene thing about as well as a couple longtime married guys can. For those of you who are single and dealing with this insane bullshit, there are a couple of you who I know are watching that I'm specifically talking to you. Hit me up and let's get your opinion on it at some point in the near future. Plus, if those guys are actually listening, they are always fun to talk to anyway. So yeah, Evan, anything you want to plug or got going on?
No, this is basically the only media I do. I've been less focused on politics like over the last several months, just because like I feel like you just need a break occasionally. Because
I have made a deliberate effort to be less political since the start of 2024. I have ratcheted back the number of shows and content that I put out per week, and I've tried to focus more on real world stuff and less on political stuff. And so, yeah, I totally get it.
It's better for your mental health for sure. Like you're a little less informed, but you're happier. So you got to find that balance.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me. Thank you to everyone who has been watching and listening. And I will be back. I'm not sure when the next one of these is exactly, but I'm almost 100% positive I've got Don the Pleb scheduled for our next Ways of the World on June 11th. And we will be talking about how the automotive industry has ruined working on your own vehicle. So that's in just a couple weeks. Be sure to tune in for that. She's laughing because this all stems from me working on her car just like the other day. So and also Don made a post about it, and when I saw that I was like, oh, I've got very recent experience. This is what we need to talk about. So anyway, thank you all very much for joining me, and be sure to tune in for that, and I'm sure I'll have something that comes out between now and then as well. Later, everybody.